Welcome, my family. Before we jump in, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends and family. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from and what time is it there? Drop your answers and any suggestions in the comments, and I might give you a shout out at the end of my next video. Thanks for being here and for all your amazing support. When Emily Turner's grandfather passed away, she was the only one left in the family to take care of his old countryside house. The house stood alone at the end of a quiet dirt road, surrounded by tall trees and long grass that danced with the wind. It was the kind of place that looked peaceful during the day, but strange and cold at night. Emily had always loved her grandfather. He was a quiet man who spent most of his time reading books and building model ships. He never let anyone go into his study room, though. "That room is for my thoughts," he used to say with a little smile. Emily never asked why. After his death, she decided to live in the house for a while. She wanted to fix it, paint the walls, and maybe even sell it one day. She was an architecture student, so she loved old buildings. It felt like a little project made just for her. On her first evening there, Emily opened all the windows to let fresh air in. Dust flew everywhere. The wooden floors creaked under her feet, and the smell of old paper and paint filled the air. She found her grandfather's blueprints in a box. They showed every part of the house, every wall, door, and window. Emily decided to use them as a guide while cleaning. But something strange caught her eye. On the drawing, there were 4 rooms on the second floor, but when she walked upstairs, she could only find 3. She checked again: living room, kitchen, small library, and 3 bedrooms upstairs, but the blueprint clearly showed 4 rooms on that floor. At first, she thought maybe her grandfather made a mistake, but he was an engineer before retiring. He never made such errors. The next morning, she decided to check every inch of the upper floor. She tapped on the walls, measured the rooms, and tried to see if something was off. In the hallway, behind a tall bookshelf full of dusty encyclopedias, she noticed something unusual. The shelf was not touching the wall. There was a small gap behind it. Curious, she pushed the shelf. It didn't move. She tried again, harder this time, and it slowly slid to the side with a loud creak. Behind it was a wooden door, painted the same color as the wall. Her heart started to beat faster. She grabbed a flashlight and turned the rusty handle. The door opened with a sharp sound, like someone gasping. Inside was a small, cold room. Dust covered everything. A tiny bed sat in one corner with a thin blanket folded neatly on top. Old children's toys, a wooden horse, a stuffed bear missing one eye, and a cracked doll lay scattered on the floor. There was also a rocking horse, standing in the middle of the room. It looked handmade, carved from wood with faded red paint and one missing ear. Emily whispered softly, "What is this place?" She looked around carefully. On the wall, she saw a faded drawing made with crayons, a stick figure family, a man, a woman, and a little girl holding hands. The words written under it said, "Me and Grandpa." Emily froze. She didn't remember ever drawing that, and she didn't have any cousins. Her grandfather never mentioned any children besides her father. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about the room. She decided to sleep in her grandfather's bedroom instead of her usual guest room. Around midnight, she heard something faint, a soft, slow creaking sound. She sat up, trying to listen. It came from upstairs, from behind the bookshelf. Then she heard a small humming sound, like a child singing a lullaby. Her body went cold. She turned on the bedside lamp, but the sound stopped instantly. After a few minutes, she told herself it was just the wind or an old pipe making noise. She lay down again, though her heart wouldn't calm. The next morning, Emily decided to record the sounds. She placed her phone in the hidden room and left it overnight. In the morning, she checked the recording. At first, there was only silence. Then, around 1:12 a.m., she heard it. A faint humming again. It grew louder and louder until it was clear. A young girl's voice singing something like, "Twinkle, twinkle, stay with me." Emily's hand shook. She replayed the clip. At the end, she heard a soft giggle, followed by the sound of something wooden moving back and forth. The rocking horse. She went to town to visit Mrs. Carter, an old woman who had known her grandfather for decades. Emily asked casually if her grandfather ever had another child. Mrs. Carter looked confused. "No, dear, but he once took care of a girl. Many, many years ago." Emily leaned forward. "What girl?" Mrs. Carter hesitated. "It was after your grandmother passed away. He found a lost girl wandering by the woods. She was maybe 6 or 7. Nobody claimed her. He let her stay for a few months. Then she disappeared." "Disappeared?" Emily asked, whispering. "Yes, your grandfather searched for her everywhere. The police thought she ran away, but he always said she never left the house." Emily's heart dropped. She thought about the drawing, me and Grandpa. That night, Emily locked the hidden door. She didn't want to hear or see anything else. She even moved a heavy chair in front of it. But around 2 a.m., she woke up to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Slow, soft, bare feet. The chair scraped across the floor by itself. Then the doorknob started to turn. Emily grabbed her flashlight and ran out of bed. The knob stopped. Silence. She whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. Then, from inside the wall came a faint knock 3 times. Knock, knock, knock. Emily's breath shook as she whispered, "Please stop." A small voice replied, "Don't forget me." The next morning, she couldn't take it anymore. She started cleaning the hidden room, trying to convince herself it was just her imagination. Under the bed, she found an old envelope with her grandfather's handwriting. It said, "To whoever finds this room, I could not protect her. The house took her. I hear her singing every night. I sealed the room, but she still finds me. Please forgive me." Emily dropped the letter. Her vision blurred. She stepped back and hit the rocking horse. It started rocking slowly on its own. Creak, creak, creak. The same lullaby filled the air. Emily decided she had to leave. That evening, she packed her bag and called a taxi for the next morning. She locked the hidden door one last time and tried to sleep. At around 3 a.m., her phone started recording again on its own, the same app she used before. She didn't touch it. When she looked at the screen, it was recording a live video of her sleeping. The angle was from the ceiling corner, the hidden room side. She froze in terror. In the corner of the video, behind her bed, stood a small girl in an old white nightgown. Her face was pale, her hair tangled, and her eyes were hollow. She rocked slightly from side to side, holding a stuffed bear. Emily threw the phone away and ran downstairs. But every door in the house swung open and shut over and over again, as if the house itself was breathing. The girl's voice echoed through the hallway. "Don't go! Grandpa said you'd stay!" Emily screamed and ran out barefoot into the rain, not stopping until she reached the main road. When the police came later with her, the house was quiet again. No rocking horse, no drawings, no hidden room. They checked behind the bookshelf. Only a wall, no sign of any secret room at all. Emily showed them the letter and her recordings, but the video file had turned blank. The sound file, too. One officer said kindly, "You've been under a lot of stress, ma'am. Maybe your mind played tricks on you." But as they left, Emily looked up at the window. For a moment, she saw a small hand pressed against the glass, waving slowly. She never went back again. The house still stands on that quiet dirt road, empty and forgotten. And sometimes, when the wind blows through the trees, the neighbors say they hear a faint sound coming from upstairs. A child humming softly, "Twinkle, twinkle, stay with me."
Rachel Green and her boyfriend Adam wanted a weekend away from the city. They were both tired of work, traffic, and noise. So when they found a small cabin for rent deep inside the woods, it looked perfect. The ad said, "Quiet, peaceful, and private, no neighbors for miles." That's exactly what they wanted. The cabin was about 3 hours away from town. The road was narrow, full of turns, and surrounded by tall pine trees. They reached just before sunset. The sky was orange, and the air smelled of wet leaves and wood. Rachel smiled. "This is beautiful," she said. Adam parked the car near the cabin. It was small but neat. Wooden walls, a porch, and a chimney. Everything looked peaceful. The landlord had left the keys under a stone, just like he promised. Inside, the cabin was cozy. There was one bedroom, a small kitchen, and a fireplace. It felt warm and safe. Rachel unpacked while Adam started the fire. They cooked dinner, laughed, and watched an old movie. When night came, the forest outside turned dark and quiet. No city lights, no traffic, just wind and crickets. Everything was perfect. Until the lights began to flicker. At first, they thought it was just a power issue. It was an old cabin after all. But then Rachel noticed something strange on the wall. Their shadows were moving. Both of them were sitting still, yet the shadows seemed to shake, almost like they were breathing. Rachel laughed nervously. "That's creepy," she said. Adam smiled. "Old bulbs, don't worry." The lights flickered again, and the shadows stretched long across the floor. Then, for just 1 second, Rachel saw it. Her shadow split into two. It happened so fast, she wasn't sure if she really saw it. She stood up and waved her hand. Her shadow moved, but beside it, a second one followed, just a little slower. "Adam," she whispered, "do you see that?" He looked. His face turned pale. "That's not right," he said softly. The lights flickered once more, and the second shadow disappeared. They both stood still for a long time. Finally, Adam laughed nervously. "Probably just your flashlight reflection or something," he said. Rachel nodded slowly. "Yeah, maybe." But deep inside, she knew what she saw. That night, Rachel had trouble sleeping. The wind outside made soft whistling sounds through the trees. Around midnight, she woke up suddenly. She didn't know why. Maybe a noise, maybe a feeling. The fire was still burning low in the living room. She sat up and looked around. Adam was asleep beside her. Then she saw it. On the bedroom wall, 2 shadows. Both were shaped like her. One stood still, but the other tilted its head slowly, as if watching her. Her heart started beating fast. She looked down at herself. She was lying still, not moving. So why were both shadows moving? The second one stepped closer to the first. Rachel covered her mouth, trying not to scream. She shook Adam's shoulder. "Adam, wake up!" He opened his eyes. "What's wrong?" She pointed to the wall. "There, look!" But when he turned on the lamp, the second shadow vanished. Adam sighed. "You're just tired, Rach. Go back to sleep." She nodded, but she couldn't close her eyes again. The next morning, Rachel told Adam she wanted to leave early, but he convinced her to stay one more night. He said, "We paid for 2 nights. Let's just relax today. It's probably nothing." They went for a walk in the forest. It was calm and quiet. Birds sang and sunlight passed through the trees. Slowly, Rachel started to feel better. Maybe it really was just a trick of the light. When they came back in the evening, everything looked normal again. They cooked dinner, played cards, and tried to laugh. Then, around 9 p.m., The power went out completely. Darkness filled the cabin. Adam lit a candle and placed it on the table. The soft glow filled the room. They both relaxed a little. Rachel looked at the wall and froze. Her shadow was there again, but behind it, a faint second one moved on its own. It leaned to one side like someone trying to peek from behind her. Rachel's voice trembled. "Adam, it's happening again!" He turned. The moment he did, both shadows stopped. He looked at her seriously. "You saw that too, right?" She nodded. "Yes." Adam stood up and went to check the fuse box. Rachel stayed near the candle, afraid to move. The flame flickered, and her second shadow stretched taller. It reached across the wall toward her. The air grew cold. The candle flame bent sideways, like someone was breathing beside it. Rachel whispered, "What do you want?" The second shadow stopped moving, then slowly smiled. Rachel screamed. Adam ran back into the room. "What happened?" She pointed to the wall, but the second shadow was gone again. Adam looked around, confused and scared. "We're leaving tomorrow morning," he said firmly. "First thing." Rachel didn't argue. She couldn't. That night, neither of them slept. They stayed together in the living room with the candle burning low. Around 3 a.m., the wind started to howl outside. The cabin walls creaked. Suddenly, a noise came from the bedroom, a soft thud, like footsteps. Adam grabbed a flashlight. "Stay here," he said. Rachel shook her head. "No, I'm coming with you." They walked slowly toward the room. The door was slightly open. The flashlight beam moved across the bed, the dresser, the floor. Nothing. Then the light hit the mirror on the wall. Rachel gasped. In the mirror, she saw herself and Adam standing side by side, but there was a third reflection behind them. A dark, blurry figure, standing close, almost touching her shoulder. The light flickered, and the figure in the mirror tilted its head and smiled, just like the shadow had. The light went out completely. Rachel screamed and ran out of the room. Adam followed, slamming the door shut. They sat near the fireplace, shaking. Adam whispered, "It's not real. It can't be real." But both of them knew it was. As dawn approached, Rachel finally dozed off on the couch. Adam stayed awake, staring at the fire. When morning came, the air felt lighter. Sunlight filled the cabin. Rachel woke up and sighed in relief. "It's over," she said softly. They packed their bags and stepped outside. But before leaving, Rachel turned back to take one last look at the cabin. And that's when she saw it. Inside the window, her shadow still stood on the wall, even though she was outside in the sunlight. Next to it, the second shadow slowly turned its head and waved. Rachel froze in horror. Adam called from the car, "Come on, let's go." She ran to the car, jumped in, and slammed the door. "Drive," she shouted. They sped down the forest road without looking back. A week later, Rachel was still having nightmares. Every night, she dreamed of that second shadow following her. Sometimes when she turned on her bedroom light, she thought she saw a flicker, two silhouettes for a split second. She tried to forget. She deleted the photos from the trip. But one morning, while cleaning her phone, she noticed something strange. In one of the pictures they took inside the cabin, there was a mirror behind her. And in that mirror, a dark, smiling face looked back, one that wasn't hers. She dropped the phone and screamed. When Adam came running, she pointed at the photo. But when he looked, the face was gone. He hugged her and said softly, "It's okay, you're safe now." But Rachel wasn't so sure. That night, she woke up to use the bathroom. The moonlight fell on the wall beside her. She saw her own shadow there, and behind it, faintly, another one standing just a little taller, smiling. She whispered, "Leave me alone." The shadow tilted its head and whispered back, "You brought me home." Rachel covered her face and cried. And from that night onward, she stopped turning on lights when it got dark, because every time she did, two shadows appeared instead of one.
Tom Harris worked as a rescue officer in a small coastal town called Grayport. The town was quiet, surrounded by cliffs and the sound of waves crashing on rocks. Every day, Tom watched the sea from his station window. He had worked there for 12 years and thought he had seen everything: storms, shipwrecks, and fishermen lost at sea. But what happened one winter night changed everything he believed about life and death. The night was cold and windy. The sea looked black, with waves as tall as houses. Tom sat near the radio receiver, wearing his thick jacket, drinking coffee to stay awake. Around midnight, the static from the radio started to change. It wasn't the usual sea noise. It was short, sharp beeps. Tom frowned. "What's that?" he whispered. He recognized it immediately. Morse code. His father had taught him Morse code when he was a child. He grabbed a notebook and started writing down the dots and dashes. After a minute, he stopped and stared at the words he had written. "Water is rising. Help. Please help." Tom checked the signal source on the radar. It came from Black Ridge Lighthouse, a tall, lonely tower standing on a small rocky island 2 miles from shore. But that was impossible. The Black Ridge Lighthouse had been shut down 30 years ago after a massive storm destroyed part of it. No one lived there anymore. Tom shook his head. "Maybe it's interference," he said out loud, trying to calm himself. But the beeps came again, slower this time. "Water is rising." He picked up his radio. "This is Coast Guard Station 4. Identify yourself. Who's sending this?" No reply. Just silence. Then one last word came through the static. "Trapped." Tom felt a chill go down his back. He grabbed his flashlight, coat, and radio, then ran outside to the rescue boat. The sea was rough, but Tom had done this many times before. Waves splashed over the small boat, and the freezing wind cut his face. The lighthouse stood tall in the distance, its broken top outlined by lightning flashes. When he finally reached the island, he tied the boat to a rusty pole and climbed the slippery rocks. The old lighthouse door hung open, creaking in the wind. Inside, everything smelled of salt, rust, and something rotten. Tom turned on his flashlight and shouted, "Coast Guard, is anyone here?" His voice echoed through the empty tower. No answer. He started climbing the iron staircase that spiraled up. Each step groaned under his weight. He could hear drops of water falling somewhere above. Halfway up, he saw something on the wall. Fresh handprints, wet and smeared. The prints looked small, like from a man's hand dragging along as he walked. Tom's breathing quickened. He reached the top and pushed open the lantern room door. The glass windows were cracked, the light was gone, and rain poured through the holes in the roof. The sea looked endless around him, dark and angry. Then, in a flash of lightning, he saw a figure standing near the window. A man, in a soaked raincoat, facing the sea. Tom shouted over the storm, "Sir, are you all right?" The man didn't move. Tom stepped closer, shining the flashlight on him, but the beam went straight through his body. The man was transparent, like fog shaped into a human form. Tom froze, unable to speak. The ghostly figure slowly turned its head. Its eyes were pale white, its face full of pain. The lips moved, but no sound came out. Tom whispered, "Who are you?" The spirit lifted an arm and pointed down the staircase. Then he vanished.
Tom's flashlight flickered. The air turned icy cold. He felt as if someone was standing right behind him. He turned around quickly. Nothing. But from below he heard it, knocking on metal 3 times. Then, faintly, the sound of Morse code, beeps echoing inside the tower itself. He took a deep breath and ran down the stairs. At the base of the lighthouse, he found a small door he hadn't noticed before. It was half covered in seaweed. He pulled it open, and a strong smell of salt water hit his face. There was a narrow staircase leading underground into a flooded storage area. His flashlight beam showed old barrels and ropes floating in dark water. Then he saw something glimmering, an old radio transmitter, half submerged. It was still working, making tiny blinking lights. Tom stepped closer, kneeling beside it. The screen showed one word repeating again and again, "Help, help, help." He turned off his radio and listened. Between the thunder and the waves, he heard something else, a man crying softly. "Please, water is rising!" He shouted, "Where are you?" The crying stopped. The next moment, cold water rushed in from the doorway, hitting his legs. The sea was coming in fast. He ran up the stairs, heart pounding. When he reached the main hall, the lighthouse door slammed shut on its own. He tried to open it, but it wouldn't move. Then he heard it, the faint click, click of Morse code, coming from the walls this time, not the radio. It was as if the whole building was tapping, dots and dashes. He understood the message immediately. Leave. He didn't wait another second. He forced the door open, jumped into his boat, and sped back toward shore as the lighthouse faded into the mist behind him. When he reached the rescue station, he was shaking and soaking wet. His friend Ben, the night supervisor, looked up from the desk. "Tom, what the hell happened to you?" Tom told him everything, the signals, the ghost, the flooded basement. Ben frowned. "That lighthouse doesn't even have a working transmitter. It was dismantled years ago." Tom stared at him. "Then how did I get the signal?" Ben didn't answer. He turned his computer screen toward Tom. It showed an old news report from 1995. The headline read, "3 lighthouse keepers drowned during storm. Bodies never recovered." Below the headline were 3 black and white photos. Tom's blood ran cold when he saw the first man, the same face he had seen in the lantern room. His name was Samuel Reed, head keeper of Black Ridge Lighthouse. The article said they had radioed for help that night, saying, "Water is rising, we are trapped." But the signal was never received because the storm had destroyed all connections. Tom whispered, "They're still sending that message." Ben said quietly, "Maybe they don't know they're gone." A few nights later, another storm hit the coast. Tom was on duty again. Around midnight, the static on the radio started once more. This time, he didn't write down the code. He already knew it by heart. "Water is rising." He pressed the radio button. "Samuel, if you can hear me, you're safe now. It's over. You can rest." For a few seconds, there was silence. Then, the radio crackled softly, and one last word came through. "Thank you." The line went dead. The next morning, the storm had calmed. The sea was smooth and gray. Tom decided to take the boat out one last time. He reached the island, climbed the rocks, and stood before the lighthouse. The door was still open, swinging slowly in the breeze. Inside, everything was quiet. He climbed to the top. The lantern room was clean this time. No smell, no wet footprints, just a strange calm. On the wall, scratched into the metal, were 3 words, "We are free." Tom smiled sadly and whispered, "Rest easy, keepers."
As he turned to leave, the morning sun broke through the clouds. For a second, he thought he saw 3 faint figures standing on the rocks below, men in old raincoats, waving toward the sea. Then they faded into the mist, leaving only the sound of waves and the echo of a distant signal that would never be heard again. Back at the rescue station, Tom kept the old notebook with the Morse messages locked in his drawer. He never told anyone else about that night. But sometimes, when he sat by the radio on stormy evenings, he would glance at the radar, and for just a moment, a tiny green dot would appear near the island, the same place where no one had lived for 30 years. Then it would vanish, like a light switching off. Tom would lean back in his chair, whispering softly, "Rest easy, Samuel." And somewhere far across the sea, the waves would answer with a quiet rhythm, a slow, steady pattern of dots and dashes, as if the dead lighthouse keepers were still keeping watch.
When James Miller got his first job as a hospital intern, he was nervous but excited. He had just finished medical school and wanted to help people. The hospital where he worked was called St. Helena's General Hospital, an old building on a small hill outside town. It was built more than 70 years ago, and people often said it was haunted. James didn't believe in ghosts. He thought those stories were just jokes people told to scare new workers. He laughed when other nurses said things like, "Don't stay alone in the East Wing," or "If you hear footsteps at midnight, don't look back." He didn't take them seriously, at least not until his 3rd night shift. His job was simple: check on patients, take notes, and make sure no one needed help during the night. He worked from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., when the hospital was quiet and most lights were dim. On his 3rd night, something strange happened. Around midnight, he was doing rounds in Ward C, the oldest part of the hospital. The hallways there were long and dark, and the walls smelled of medicine and disinfectant. While walking past room 9, he saw a soft yellow light coming from inside. That was odd. He was sure he had turned all the lights off earlier. When he stepped inside, he saw an old nurse standing beside the patient's bed. She was wearing a crisp white uniform and a small white hat. Her hair was silver, tied neatly in a bun. She was adjusting the blanket around a sleeping patient, smiling kindly. James said politely, "Oh, hello. I didn't know someone else was here." The nurse looked at him and nodded slightly. "Just checking on them, dear. It's cold tonight." Her voice was calm and gentle. James smiled. "That's very kind of you. I'm new here, James Miller." She smiled faintly. "Welcome to St. Helena's, James. We take care of everyone here." Before he could say more, she turned toward the window. James looked down to check the patient's chart, and when he looked up again, the nurse was gone. He thought maybe she had left quickly. He stepped out into the hallway. No one was there. The whole corridor was silent. He frowned. The nurse's footsteps should have echoed, but there was nothing. The next morning, when he met the senior nurse, Linda, in the break room, he mentioned it. "Hey, I met a nurse last night in Ward C. She was older, silver hair, kind face, wearing the old-style uniform." Linda stopped stirring her coffee. Her expression changed. "What did you say?" He repeated it. Linda's voice dropped low. "We don't have any nurse like that, James. Everyone wears blue scrubs now. No one wears white caps anymore." He laughed awkwardly.
Maybe she's from another department? Linda shook her head. You saw her in Ward C? Yes. Linda sighed and whispered, That sounds like Nurse Agnes. Who's that? She used to work here a long time ago. She died during the fire in 1962. The story goes she stayed behind to help her patients escape. They say she still walks the halls every night, checking if everyone's safe. James laughed again, but this time it was weaker. You're joking, right? Linda didn't smile. I wish I was. That night, James tried to ignore the story, but once again, around midnight, while writing his notes at the nurse's desk, he smelled something strange, like burnt antiseptic and smoke. He looked up. The lights above room 9 flickered. He stood slowly, heart pounding. It's just an old building, he whispered to himself. Maybe the wires are bad. Still, he walked toward the room. The air felt colder there, as if the temperature had dropped suddenly. He could see his breath in front of him. He pushed open the door. The patient was sleeping peacefully, but the old nurse was there again, Nurse Agnes. She was fixing the patient's blanket, humming a soft tune. James said politely, "Ma'am." She turned to him and smiled kindly. "Cold night again, isn't it, dear?" He froze. Her face looked the same as before, but her uniform was covered in faint brown stains, and a small burn mark ran across her arm. The smell of smoke grew stronger. "Are you one of the old nurses?" he asked slowly. She didn't answer. She only said, "Make sure they're warm. The cold gets them first." Then she looked toward the window again and faded away, just like smoke disappearing into the air. James stood frozen for several minutes. When he finally moved, his hands were shaking. He checked the patient's temperature. It was dangerously low. The nurse's words echoed in his mind. Make sure they're warm. He quickly covered the patient with extra blankets and called the on-duty doctor. They managed to stabilize the patient just in time. The next day, the doctor told him, "Good instincts, Miller. If you hadn't noticed in time, the patient might not have made it." James nodded, but he didn't tell anyone how he noticed. Over the next week, strange things continued to happen. Every night, exactly at 12:15 a.m., the smell of burnt antiseptic filled the hallway near room 9. Sometimes, James would see a shadow move at the far end of the corridor, the shape of a woman in an old nurse's uniform. Other times, the temperature in the room would drop suddenly, and the machines would start beeping for no reason. But whenever someone was near death, she would appear. One night, an old man in room 10 started gasping for air. James and another nurse rushed in to help, but before they could reach him, the monitor flatlined. The man was gone. James turned away for just a second, and when he looked back, the old nurse was standing by the bed, whispering softly, "It's all right now. You can rest." She touched the man's hand and vanished again, leaving behind that same burning smell. The other nurse screamed, "Did you see that?" James nodded slowly. "Yes, I think I did." One evening, he decided to learn the truth. After his shift, he went to the hospital archives. Dusty files filled the room. He searched until he found one labeled Fire 1962. Inside were yellowed papers and black and white photos. He saw pictures of burned corridors, broken deads, and collapsed ceilings. Then he found a report. Nurse Agnes Reed died during the fire, 3:07 a.m., stayed behind to save 3 patients in Ward C, found near the window of room 9, still holding the patient's hand. He stared at the photo of her face. It was exactly the same woman he'd seen. The gentle eyes, the calm smile. He felt a lump in his throat. "She really existed," he whispered. The next night, something unexpected happened. A young boy in room 12 went into sudden cardiac arrest. The doctors were far away, and the power flickered. I ran to the room shouting for help. The heart monitor beeped wildly. Then the smell came, that same burnt antiseptic smell. He turned and saw Nurse Agnes standing by the door. She nodded once, as if to tell him to keep going. He worked on the boy's chest, counting each push. 1, 2, 3, come on, breathe! After a minute that felt like forever, the boy gasped and opened his eyes. He looked up, and the nurse was gone again. He whispered, "Thank you." Later that week, he told Linda what happened. "She saved that boy," he said. Linda smiled softly. "She always did, even in death." James asked, "Why does she still stay?" Linda sighed. Maybe she made a promise to never leave her patients. Months passed. James continued working there. He never told new interns about Nurse Agnes. He wanted them to see for themselves if they ever did. One winter night, he was called to room 9 again. The patient was an old lady.
A lady who had been very sick for weeks. As James held her hand, she whispered, "There's a lady standing by the window. She says she'll help me cross." James didn't turn around. He just said softly, "She's kind. Don't be afraid." A few minutes later, the woman passed peacefully, a faint smile on her face. When James finally looked up, Nurse Agnes was standing by the window again. She gave him a small nod of thanks and slowly faded away into the pale morning light. Years later, James became a senior doctor at St. Helena's. The hospital had changed a lot. New walls, new equipment, new paint. But the old Ward C was still there. Every new nurse who worked the night shift said the same thing. "Sometimes we smell something like burnt medicine around midnight," or "I swear I saw an old nurse near room 9, but when I blinked she was gone." James never denied it. He just smiled and said, "If you ever see her, don't be scared. She's been here longer than all of us." And even now, if you walk through Ward C at midnight, you might feel the air turn cold and smell the faint scent of burnt antiseptic. If you look carefully, you may see a soft light glowing near room 9 and an old nurse with silver hair gently tucking in a patient's blanket, whispering, "It's cold tonight, dear. Sleep well."
Peter Collins loved old things. He ran a small antique shop in a quiet town called Willow Creek. The shop was full of strange items: clocks that no longer worked, broken typewriters, and faded family photos that nobody wanted anymore. But Peter loved them all. He especially liked mirrors. He said each one told a story. Some were small and cracked, others tall and beautiful with golden frames. He polished them every morning until they shone. One rainy afternoon, an old man came into the shop. He wore a long black coat and held a large, heavy mirror wrapped in cloth. He said softly, "Would you like to buy this? It's from the old Hargrave mansion." Peter's eyes lit up. The Hargrave mansion had burned down 30 years ago. Everyone in town said it was haunted. "How much?" Peter asked. The old man smiled weakly. "Take it for 50. I just want it gone." Peter agreed immediately. He paid the man, who left without saying another word. When Peter unwrapped the mirror, he couldn't believe how beautiful it was. It was tall, with silver edges shaped like vines. The glass was spotless, even though it looked very old. He placed it near the back of his shop, where customers could see it as they walked in. That night, when he closed the shop, he looked into the mirror one last time before turning off the lights. For a moment, he thought he saw something move behind him, a faint shadow. He turned quickly. Nothing was there. He laughed to himself. Just my imagination. The next morning, when he opened the shop, something strange caught his eye. The mirror looked brighter, almost like light was coming from inside it. He walked closer and froze. There was a woman's face in the reflection. Not his, not anyone else's, a woman he didn't know. Her face was pale, and her eyes were wide open. He blinked, and she was gone. He shook his head. "Maybe it's just dust," he muttered, wiping the glass. But deep down, he knew what he saw. That evening, while closing, Peter heard a sound from the back room. It was soft, like someone humming. He stopped and listened. The humming came from the mirror. He whispered, "Hello?" No answer. He turned off the lights and left quickly. But that night, he couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that pale woman's face staring at him. A few days later, a customer came in, a young woman looking for furniture. She stopped in front of the mirror. "Oh, this is lovely," she said. "But who are those people?" Peter frowned. "What people?" She pointed at the mirror. "Those behind me." Peter looked, and his stomach dropped. In the reflection, there were two strangers standing behind the woman. A man and a woman, both pale, both looking straight ahead. But when he turned around, the shop was empty. The customer screamed and ran out, never looking back. Peter stood frozen. The reflection was now normal, only his face and the mirror. He closed the shop early that day. That night, Peter decided to cover the mirror with a large sheet. He told himself he'd return it to the old man tomorrow. But as he was locking the front door, he heard a whisper from behind. "Don't cover us!" He turned slowly. The sheet had fallen off. The mirror was uncovered again. And in the reflection, he saw three faces. The same pale strangers standing behind him. Peter's voice shook. "Who are you?" The woman in the middle smiled faintly. Her lips didn't move, but her voice filled the room. "You took our home!" Peter backed away, shaking his head. No, I just bought it." "Then you belong to it now," the voice said. The mirror went black. Peter ran upstairs to his small apartment above the shop and locked the door. The next morning, he went down to check the mirror. It looked normal again. For a moment, he thought maybe he had dreamed it all. But when he looked closely, his reflection was different. He looked tired and older, as if he hadn't slept in weeks. He stepped closer, touching the glass. It was cold, freezing cold.
Then he noticed something horrifying. In the reflection, his hand didn't move. He raised it slowly. The reflection stayed still. Then, after a second, the reflection smiled at him. Peter screamed and fell backward. The reflection's smile grew wider. The reflection's eyes turned black, and its mouth moved silently. "Stay with us." Peter ran out of the shop, straight to the police station. He told them everything about the mirror, the faces, the voices. The officers didn't believe him. They thought he was exhausted. "You need rest," one said kindly. Peter went back to his shop, but he didn't go inside. He slept in his car that night. When he finally entered the next morning, the mirror was gone. Only a dark rectangle on the wall showed where it used to hang. He searched everywhere, behind furniture, in storage, nothing. He sighed in relief. He said, "Maybe someone stole it. Good, let them have it." But as he walked to the front door, something shiny caught his eye. In the front window, his reflection stared back, and behind him stood the three pale figures. He turned around. The shop was empty. He turned back to the glass and saw a fourth figure now, himself. His reflection inside the window was no longer copying him. It was standing perfectly still, eyes black, smiling just like the others. He whispered, "No." The reflection reached out from the glass. He screamed, but it was too late. Days later, the shop was found locked from the inside. No one saw Peter again. Customers said the shop lights stayed on all night for a week before finally going dark. When police entered, they found everything covered in dust, except for a single mirror standing in the middle of the room. It was clean and shining, and if you looked closely, you could see 4 people in the reflection. One of them was Peter, standing at the back, his mouth open as if still trying to scream. They say the mirror is still in that shop. The new owner keeps it covered, but sometimes when someone walks too close, they hear faint humming. And if the sheet ever slips off, even for a second, there are always more faces inside than there should be. Because once the mirror shows you, it never lets you go.
Dylan Parker was a young filmmaker who loved exploring old and forgotten places. He made short documentaries for YouTube about haunted houses, ghost towns, and strange history. When he heard about an abandoned coal mine outside a small village called Ridge Hollow, he knew he had to visit. Locals said the mine had been closed since 1924 after a big collapse killed several workers, some of them children who worked there illegally. People believed their spirits still cried in the tunnels. Dylan didn't believe in ghosts. He thought these stories would make great videos, nothing more. He packed his camera, a few lights, a voice recorder, and food for 2 days. He told his friend Mason that he would be fine. "It's just a hole in the ground," he said, laughing. He reached the mine in the afternoon. The entrance was surrounded by weeds and broken fences. A sign said, "Danger, entry forbidden." But Dylan ignored it. He set up his camera, speaking cheerfully to the lens. Hey everyone! Today I'm exploring the old Ridge Hollow mine, where 27 workers and 6 children died nearly 100 years ago. Locals say they still hear crying from inside. Let's find out if that's true. He smiled, waved, and stepped into the darkness. Inside, the air was cold and heavy. The tunnels were wet, and water dripped from the ceiling. His flashlight made the walls glisten like black glass. The smell of old earth filled the air. He walked slowly, recording everything. Every sound echoed, his footsteps, his breathing, even the click of his camera button. After an hour, he reached a large chamber where the mine split into 3 smaller tunnels. He placed a microphone and left it recording, planning to capture sounds overnight. As he turned to leave, he heard something, faint, like a small sob. He stopped. The air went still. "Hello?" he called out. His voice echoed off the stone walls. No answer. He waited a few seconds, then shook his head. "Probably water dripping," he said softly. He finished setting up his cameras and left the mine before it got too dark outside. That night, he stayed at a cheap motel nearby. After dinner, he connected his recorder to his laptop to listen. For a long time, there was nothing but wind and small echoes. Then, around 1:37 a.m., he heard it. A soft, sad crying sound. It was faint but real, a child's voice crying somewhere deep in the mine. Dylan sat up straight. No way! He replayed it again and again. The cry grew louder, and after a few seconds, a weak voice whispered, "Help me!" Dylan's heart started to race. It didn't sound fake. It didn't sound like wind. He whispered to himself, "I need to go back there tomorrow." The next morning, he went back to the mine early. The sun was out, but inside the tunnels it was still dark and cold. He followed the path he took before, talking to the camera. "Okay, I'm back. Last night I recorded a voice, a child crying. I'm gonna find where it came from." He reached the main chamber and picked up the recorder. Everything looked normal, but the air felt heavier than yesterday. He walked into the left tunnel, shining his flashlight around. It was narrow and low. He had to crouch. After a few minutes, he thought he heard footsteps behind him. He turned quickly. The tunnel was empty. "Hello?" he called again. No one answered, but now he could hear the crying again, soft, shaky, coming from somewhere deeper. He followed the sound, his breath quick and uneven. The crying got louder. Then he saw something ahead. A small figure sitting on the ground, facing the wall. It looked like a little boy, dressed in dirty old clothes. His head was down, his shoulders shaking. Dylan froze. "Hey, are you okay?" The boy didn't answer. Dylan took a slow step forward. "Don't be scared, I'm here to help." The boy turned his head slightly. His face was pale and covered in dirt, his eyes big and dark. He whispered, "Too late." Before Dylan could speak, the boy vanished, like smoke disappearing into the air. The flashlight flickered, and the walls around him started to shake. "An earthquake?" Dylan shouted, running back toward the main chamber. Dust and small rocks fell from the ceiling. He reached the chamber, coughing, and heard a deep rumble below the ground, like something alive moving through the tunnels. The sound of crying returned, but now it was many voices, children and adults, crying and whispering all at once. "Go back. one voice said. "Leave us," another whispered. Then a loud crash echoed through the tunnel, and the entrance behind him collapsed. Dylan screamed and dropped his camera. He was trapped. For what felt like hours, he sat in the darkness, breathing hard, trying to calm down. His flashlight was weak now. He turned it off to save power. In the dark, he could still hear the crying, soft and distant, sometimes close to his ear. He whispered, "Please, someone help me." A small voice answered, "We tried." He turned the flashlight back on. For a second, he saw tiny handprints all over the tunnel walls, hundreds of them pressed into the wet stone. Then they faded away. He ran, trying to find another exit. The tunnel seemed endless now, turning in strange directions. He couldn't find the main chamber anymore. Every corner looked the same. Every shadow looked like someone standing there. Finally, he stopped, too tired to move. He pressed his back to the wall and closed his eyes. Then he heard his own voice coming from the dark ahead. "Help me!" He opened his eyes in shock. The voice repeated exactly like the recording. It was his own voice calling for help. Something moved in the dark, his own reflection, stepping out of the shadows. It looked just like him, same face, same clothes, but pale and lifeless. The reflection smiled and whispered, "Now you're one of us." The flashlight died. 2 days later, Mason called the police when Dylan didn't return. A rescue team went into the mine. They found his equipment near the entrance and his camera still recording. There was no sign of Dylan. But on the video, they saw something strange. Around 1:37 a.m., the camera caught a faint light deeper inside the tunnel, like a figure holding a lantern. Then they heard Dylan's voice calling for help, echoing through the mine. The rescuers followed the sound for hours, but found no one. When they came out, the radio in one of their trucks turned on itself. A weak child's voice came through. "Help me!" The same voice from Dylan's recording. The mine was sealed again after that. No one was allowed near it. But locals say on quiet nights, if you stand close to the old gate and listen carefully, you can still hear it. A soft crying sound deep under the ground. Some say it's the children from 1924. Others say it's Dylan, still calling for help, lost forever in the tunnels he wanted to film. And if you record the sound, you might hear a whisper that wasn't there before. Your own voice, echoing back at you, saying, "Now you're one of us."
Laura Bennett was a traveling saleswoman. Her job made her visit new cities every week. She spent more time in hotels than in her own home. She didn't mind it. She liked quiet nights, clean sheets, and a cup of tea before bed. One rainy evening, Laura was driving on an empty highway when her car's tire burst. She pulled over and realized her phone had no signal. After 30 minutes of waiting, she saw a small sign glowing in the dark. Silver Pines Motel, vacancy. Relieved, she drove there. The motel was old, with paint peeling off the walls and a flickering neon sign, but she was too tired to care. Inside, the lobby smelled of coffee and cleaning spray. A thin old man sat at the front desk reading a newspaper. "Evening," Laura said. "Do you have any rooms?" The man looked up slowly. His eyes were pale and tired. "Yes, we do," he said. "Just one thing. Don't stay in room 217. It's under maintenance." Laura nodded, signing the register. "No problem."
He gave her a key to room 215, just down the hall. The hallway was dimly lit. The carpet was old, and the air smelled musty. She passed room 217. Its door had a rusty padlock and a sign that said, "Do not enter." Inside her own room, everything seemed fine. A small bed, a wooden table, and a TV that barely worked. She took a shower, made tea, and sat near the window listening to the rain. By midnight, she was asleep. At around 3 a.m., she woke up to a sound, a soft knock. Knock, knock, knock. She sat up, confused. The sound wasn't from the door. It was coming from inside the room, from the wardrobe. Her chest tightened. She whispered, "Hello?" No answer. The knocking came again, slow and gentle. She reached for her phone, but there was no signal. Taking a deep breath, she walked to the wardrobe. The wood looked old and scratched. She slowly opened it. Empty. Only a single coat hanger swung slightly back and forth. She closed the door quickly and went back to bed. "It's just the pipes," she told herself. "Old buildings make noises." But she didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, she went to the front desk to check out. The old man looked up and smiled. "Did you sleep well?" She forced a laugh. "Not really. I kept hearing knocking from my wardrobe." His face went pale. "What room did you stay in?" 215, she said. He shrugged. "That can't be. That room hasn't been used in years." Laura blinked. "What? You gave me the key last night." The old man shook his head. "No, ma'am. I gave you room 214. The key to 215 doesn't even work anymore. The door's been sealed since—" He stopped speaking. "Since what?" Laura asked. He sighed. "Since a woman was killed there. She was found inside the wardrobe. After that, we closed the room forever." Laura felt her stomach twist. "That's not possible. I slept there last night." The man stared at her. "Did you see anyone?" "No, but I heard knocking." The man stood up. "Show me." They walked down the hall together. Room 215's door looked the same as last night. Laura inserted her key and turned it. It opened easily. The man stepped back in shock. This door should be locked with chains. Inside, the room looked clean and normal, as if it had just been prepared for a guest. Laura whispered, "I told you I was here." The old man stepped closer to the wardrobe. His hands trembled as he touched it. He whispered, "That's where they found her body." Suddenly, the wardrobe door rattled. Both of them jumped back. The sound came again. Knock, knock, knock. Laura grabbed the man's arm. "What is that?" He whispered, "It's her." The knocking stopped. The room fell silent. Then a woman's voice came from inside the wardrobe, soft and muffled. "Don't let him in." Laura gasped. "What did she say?" Before the man could answer, someone banged on the door from outside. Laura screamed. The old man opened the door, but no one was there. The hallway was empty. They looked back at the wardrobe. The door was slightly open now, and a cold wind blew out from inside it, even though the room had no windows. The old man whispered shakily, "We need to leave." They ran out and slammed the door behind them. Laura refused to stay another night. She packed her things and drove away as fast as she could. When she looked in the mirror of her car, she saw the motel sign growing smaller behind her, and for a split second, she thought she saw a woman standing in the window of room 215 watching her leave. That night, Laura stayed in another motel 2 towns away. She told herself it was all in her head. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she imagined everything. But when she unpacked her bag, she froze. Inside her suitcase was a metal key, the same old-fashioned key from room 215. Her hand shook. "How?" she whispered. She threw it into the trash and locked the door of her new room. 2 days later, while driving home, she turned on the local radio. The news was about the Silver Pines Motel. Early this morning, the reporter said, the old Silver Pines Motel was destroyed in a fire. Investigators say the fire started in room 215. No one was inside at the time. Laura almost stopped breathing. The reporter continued, the motel was abandoned for years. Locals say it had been closed since 1998 after a murder-suicide in room 215. Her grip on the steering wheel tightened. "But I stayed there," she whispered. The radio suddenly made a loud crackling noise. Then, through the static, a soft woman's voice said, "Don't let him in." Laura's heart stopped. She turned off the radio immediately. When she parked at a rest stop, she looked in the rearview mirror. In the back seat, the reflection showed a woman sitting quietly. Pale face, black eyes, and lips curved into a small, sad smile. She spun around, but the seat was empty. She started the car and drove away fast, her hands trembling. But no matter how far she went, the smell of that old room followed her, a faint mix of dust and perfume. And that night, when she checked into yet another hotel, she placed her bag on the floor, looked around, and sighed, "Finally safe." Then she heard it. Knock, knock, knock. It came from the wardrobe. She whispered in fear, "Please, not again." The voice replied, softly, just like before, "Don't let him in."
Ethan Miller loved hiking more than anything. He was 24, strong, and full of energy. Every weekend, he went somewhere new with his backpack and camera. He liked the quiet, the fresh air, and being away from people. One Friday, he decided to explore Black Pine Forest, a huge area in the north that few people visited. Locals said the forest was strange. Many hikers lost their way there. Some were found days later, confused and scared. Others were never found at all. Ethan laughed when he heard those stories. "Old superstitions," he told his friend before leaving. "I'll be fine." He packed food, a map, and a flashlight, then drove to the edge of the forest. The sky was bright blue when he started walking. The first few hours were peaceful. Birds sang and sunlight danced through the tall trees. He recorded everything on his phone, smiling. "This is paradise," he said to the camera. By evening, the wind picked up and clouds covered the sky. Ethan decided to camp for the night near a small stream. He set up his tent, cooked noodles on a small stove, and sat quietly listening to the water flow. But when the sun disappeared, the forest became very dark, darker than he expected. The air felt heavy and cold. Even the crickets stopped singing. He felt a strange feeling, like someone was watching him. He looked around, shining his flashlight. Nothing but trees. "Get a grip," he told himself. "You're alone. It's fine." He went into his tent and tried to sleep. Sometime during the night, he woke up suddenly. He didn't know why. The air was completely still. Then he heard it, soft footsteps outside his tent. He held his breath. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The steps were slow, circling around his tent. "Hello?" he called, his voice shaky. "Is someone there?" The footsteps stopped. Silence. He waited. After a minute, he unzipped the tent a little and pointed his flashlight outside. The beam moved across the trees. Nothing. He took a deep breath and whispered, "Probably a deer." But when he looked down, he saw footprints in the dirt, not animal prints, but small, bare feet. Ethan's stomach tightened. He zipped the tent shut and stayed awake till morning. The next day, he packed up quickly. "Maybe I should go back," he said quietly. But the forest paths all looked the same. When he checked his compass, the needle spun in circles. His GPS showed no signal. He walked for hours trying to find the main trail, but ended up deeper inside instead. The trees grew closer together, blocking the sunlight. By afternoon, he was tired and thirsty. He sat on a rock to rest. That's when he saw her. A woman in gray, standing between two trees about 20 meters away. She had long dark hair and a long gray dress. Her face was pale. She didn't move, just stared at him. Ethan stood up quickly. "Hey, do you know the way out?" The woman didn't reply. He took a step toward her. "I'm lost," he said. "Can you help me?" The woman slowly raised her arm and pointed deeper into the woods. Then she turned and walked away silently. Ethan hesitated, then followed. "Wait! Please stop!" But no matter how fast he walked, she stayed the same distance ahead, moving smoothly, almost floating. After 10 minutes, she vanished behind a group of trees. When Ethan reached the spot, she was gone. But there was a small wooden cabin hidden among the trees. He sighed in relief. Finally, someone lives here. The cabin was old but clean. The door was unlocked. Inside, there was a table, a chair, and a few old pictures on the wall. A woman and two children smiling in black and white. He found some dry blankets and decided to stay for the night. "I'll try to find my way out tomorrow," he whispered. As the night grew colder, he sat near the window. The forest outside was dark again, silent and endless. He kept thinking about the woman in gray. Who was she? How did she know about this cabin? Around midnight, he heard footsteps again, outside the cabin this time. He grabbed his flashlight and whispered, "Hello?" No answer. Then someone knocked softly on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan's hands shook. "Who is it?" No reply. He slowly opened the door. The beam of his flashlight hit the trees, and there she was again, standing a few feet away. The woman in gray. Her face was calm, her eyes sad. She raised her hand again and pointed behind him. Ethan turned around and froze. On the wall inside the cabin, there was a diary hanging open, its pages moving with the wind. He stepped closer and read the last entry aloud. "The storm took my husband and children. I waited 3 days, but they never came back. I hear them calling me from the woods every night. Tomorrow, I'll go to them." Ethan's voice broke. "Oh my God!" He turned around and the woman was gone. In the morning, he woke up to birds singing again. Sunlight came through the window. For the first time in 2 days, the forest looked normal. He stepped outside, packed his bag, and started walking west, where the light seemed brighter. After 2 hours, he finally reached a road. He was saved. A rescue team later found him sitting on a rock, dirty and shaking. He told them everything: the footsteps, the woman, the cabin. They looked at each other strangely. "There's no cabin in Black Pine," one of them said. "That area burned down 50 years ago." Ethan stared at him. "No, I slept there last night. It's real." The rescuers led him out of the forest. Before leaving, he turned back. Far away through the trees, he saw a faint figure in gray watching him. She raised her hand slowly, this time waving goodbye. A week later, when Ethan was home, the police called him. They said they went back to search the area where he claimed the cabin was. They found no cabin, only an old foundation and burned stones. But near it, they found a small diary half buried in the dirt. The last page was exactly what he had read, but below it was one more line written in fresh ink. "Thank you for leading me home." Ethan hung up the phone, his hands cold. He turned to look at his desk and saw his hiking boots still covered in forest dirt. Beside them lay a single gray ribbon, tied neatly in a bow. He hadn't brought it back. That night, as he was falling asleep, a soft woman's voice whispered in his ear, "If you ever get lost again, I'll find you." Ethan never went hiking again, but sometimes when he drove near the forest, he could swear he saw her standing among the trees, the woman in gray, still watching, still waiting. And every time, her footprints pointed the other way.
Lily Morgan worked in a small call center in her town. She answered phone calls from customers who needed help with bills, deliveries, and complaints. It was a quiet job, and most nights were boring. She worked the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The office was half empty at night. Only 5 people worked there, and the lights were always dim. The room smelled of coffee and paper. Lily didn't mind the night. She liked silence. She would listen to soft music through one earphone while waiting for the phone to ring. One Thursday night, her shift started like usual. She put her headset on, opened her computer, and sipped coffee. Around 11:30, her phone rang. "Customer support, this is Lily speaking. How can I help you?" A man's voice came through, quiet, tired, and slow. "Hi, I need help. I'm stuck on the road. It's so cold. I can't find my way home." Lily frowned. "Sir, you've reached customer support. Do you need emergency help? Should I call someone for you?" The man sighed. "I tried. No one answers. I keep calling, but it's always you." Lily checked her computer. The caller ID said, "Unknown number." "Sir, where exactly are you?" He paused. "On Miller's Road. My car stopped working. It's dark. I think I'm freezing." Lily typed quickly into her map app. "Miller's Road? That's 5 miles from here." She said gently, "Stay calm. I'll try to send help. Can you see any houses nearby?" "No," the man said. "Just trees and fog. I've been here for hours. The snow is falling hard now." Lily felt a chill. "It's not snowing tonight, sir. The weather is clear." Silence. Then the man whispered, "It's always snowing here." The line went dead. Lily sat frozen. The call log said the call lasted 3 minutes 47 seconds. She called her coworker, Jenna, and told her what happened. Jenna laughed softly. "You probably got a prank call. It's almost midnight. Weird people always call around this time." Lily nodded slowly, but she couldn't stop thinking about the man's voice. He had sounded scared, not like someone joking. She brushed it off and continued working. At 2 a.m., the phone rang again. Same unknown number. Her heart skipped a beat. She answered. "Customer support, this is Lily." "It's me again," the same voice said. "You didn't send anyone." Her hands trembled. "Sir, I'm sorry, I couldn't trace your number. Can you give me a landmark? A sign?" He paused. "I'm near a broken signboard. It says, 'Welcome to Miller's Road.' The lights went out. I think my car is gone." "Gone?" Lily asked. "What do you mean?" "I can't see it anymore," he whispered. "Everything is white." "White?" He paused, breathing heavily.
The snow is covering everything. Lily looked out the window of her office. The streets outside were dry, no snow anywhere. She took a deep breath. "Sir, what's your name?" The voice was faint. "Michael." "Okay, Michael, listen, I'm trying to help. Please stay on the line." Then suddenly, another sound came through, a loud crash followed by static. Lily shouted, "Michael, are you there?" No answer. Only the sound of wind and faint whispering, like someone saying her name. "Lily." The line went silent again. The next morning, Lily couldn't stop thinking about the call. She told her manager everything. He checked the system and said, "There's no record of any incoming call from that number." "That's impossible," Lily said. "It was on my screen." He shook his head. "Our system doesn't log blocked or dead numbers. Maybe it was a glitch?" But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that it was real. That evening, she searched online for Miller's Road accident. She found an old article from 5 years ago. Man found dead in snowstorm on Miller's Road. Vehicle lost control and crashed into a tree. Victim identified as Michael Turner, age 33, died of hypothermia before help arrived. Lily stared at the screen, heart pounding. The article showed his picture, brown hair, kind eyes, and a gentle smile. The same voice she had heard. She whispered, "No, it can't be him." The next night, she came to work feeling nervous. She told her coworker about the article, but Jenna didn't believe her. "Lily, you're letting this ghost stuff get into your head. It's probably just coincidence." Lily nodded slowly, but she kept checking her phone, hoping the number wouldn't call again. For a few hours, everything was quiet. Then at 3:07 a.m., the phone rang. Same unknown number. Her heart raced. She stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Hello?" "Lily." It was Michael's voice, softer this time, almost sad. He said, "I'm still here." I whispered, "Why are you calling me?" "I don't know," he said. "No one answers. I keep trying, but the road never ends. I think I'm lost." I swallowed hard. You died there, Michael." Silence. Then he whispered, "Is that why it's so cold?" Tears filled my eyes. "Yes, maybe you need to move on." "I can't," he said. "The lights keep calling me back." "What lights?" "The headlights. I see them coming. I think they're here to help, but they always crash again, over and over." The sound of wind filled the line, and then, faintly, I heard screeching tires and a loud crash. I cried out, "Michael!" But the call ended. She sat there shaking for a long time. When Jenna came over, she couldn't speak. She showed her the call log, but it was blank again. There was no sign of any call at all. She tried calling the number back, but her phone said invalid. That night, when she finally went home, she couldn't sleep. Every sound reminded her of that voice. At 3:07 a.m., her phone lit up on the bedside table. The screen said, "Unknown number." Her stomach turned. She answered with trembling hands. "Lily?" the voice said softly. "It's snowing again." I whispered, "Please stop calling me." He sighed, "You're the only one who hears me." The line filled with static, and then she heard her own voice, her exact voice, whisper back through the phone, "I'm stuck on the road. It's cold. Help me." Lily dropped the phone in terror. The line cut off. When she picked it up again, the screen showed a new message, "See you soon." The next morning, Lily didn't come to work. Her boss tried calling, but her number didn't connect.
Later that day, police found her car crashed on Miller's Road, the same spot where Michael Turner had died. They said the weather was clear and the roads were dry. Her phone was found beside her, screen cracked, showing one last missed call, unknown number, 3:07 a.m. And when investigators checked the recording system at her office, they found a strange audio file from that same time. It was Lily's voice whispering over and over, "It's cold. I can't find my way home." To this day, the call center still gets strange phone calls at 3:07 a.m. The workers say they hear a man and a woman talking softly through the static. Both voices say the same thing again and again. "We're stuck on the road. It's snowing. Please help us." But when they check the number, it always says unknown. And if you ever drive down Miller's Road on a foggy night, you might see two faint headlights in the distance, blinking again and again, as if someone's still trying to find their way home.
Henry Walker was an art restorer. His job was to clean and repair old paintings so they could look new again. He worked in a small museum in London, surrounded by dusty portraits and silent hallways. He loved his work because he believed every painting had a secret, a story hidden behind the brushstrokes. One cold winter morning, Henry received a new project from the museum's director. "This one is special," she said. "It's a 19th century family portrait, very valuable, but people say strange things about it." Henry laughed softly. "Strange things?" The director nodded. "It used to belong to the Caraway family. After they died, the painting went missing for decades. Some say it's cursed." Henry smiled. "Cursed paintings don't exist, only damaged ones." He took the large canvas into his workshop. It showed a family of three, a father, a mother, and a little boy. They stood in front of a garden, all wearing dark clothes. The paint was cracked, but the faces were clear. The mother's eyes looked very real, too real. He began cleaning the surface gently. He worked for hours, carefully removing layers of dust. When he looked at the mother's face under bright light, he thought her eyes seemed slightly opened wider than in the photos sent by the museum. He blinked and checked again. Maybe it was just the lighting. He kept working. The next day, when he returned to the workshop, something felt off. The air was colder, and the smell of oil paint was stronger than usual. He uncovered the painting and froze. The mother's eyes were definitely wider than before. Her pupils were now visible. Henry frowned. "Maybe I overcleaned the layer of varnish," he whispered. But when he checked the photos again, it wasn't possible. He hadn't touched that area yet. He stepped closer. The woman's gaze now seemed to follow him across the room. He laughed nervously. "Old trick of the artist," he said to himself. "It's just perspective." He turned off the lights and went home. That night, Henry dreamed of the woman in the portrait. She was standing in his workshop, whispering softly, "Finish the family." When he woke up, he was sweating. The following morning, Henry found something strange again. The little boy in the painting looked different now. His head, which was tilted slightly before, was now facing straight ahead, looking directly at the viewer. Henry felt a chill run down his spine. He grabbed his phone and checked the previous day's picture. Yes, the boy's head had moved. "This is impossible," he whispered. He went to tell his assistant Martha, but when she came to see it, everything looked normal again. She smiled. "You're working too hard, Henry. Go easy on the coffee." He nodded, pretending to agree. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. That night, he locked the workshop,
and left early. At around midnight, his phone buzzed. It was a motion alert from the security camera inside his workshop. He opened the app and saw the live feed. The room was dark, but the painting was visible in the corner. As he watched, the mother's hand in the painting slowly moved, sliding from her side to the boy's shoulder. Henry dropped his phone in shock. He picked it up again. The painting was still. He replayed the clip. The hand definitely moved. He whispered, "What do you want from me?" No answer came, but the words from his dream echoed in his head. "Finish the family." The next morning, Henry returned to work early. He wanted to prove it was just his imagination. He looked carefully at the painting again. The mother's hand now rested on the boy's shoulder, exactly like in the video. He leaned closer and noticed something new near the edge of the canvas, like faint brushstrokes, like someone had begun painting another person on the side. The shape was blurry, like it had been erased long ago. A fourth figure. Henry whispered, "Who were you?" The air grew colder. He felt someone behind him, but when he turned, no one was there. He decided to clean that area carefully, revealing more of the shape. It looked like a woman's dress, but smaller, like that of a child. Suddenly, his phone rang. The call made him jump. It was Martha. "Henry, are you in the workshop?" "Yes, why?" "I just checked the camera feed. Are you moving the painting?" He frowned. "No, I'm just cleaning it." "Then who's that standing next to you?" Henry froze. He turned slowly toward the painting. In the reflection of the glass covering the portrait, he saw a pale figure standing right beside him. A small girl wearing old-fashioned clothes, looking up at him silently. When he spun around, the room was empty. He whispered, "Oh my God!" The reflection was gone. He decided to stop the restoration immediately. He called the director and told her he couldn't continue. That night, he left the museum and went straight home. He poured a glass of water and sat on his couch, trying to calm his nerves. Then his phone buzzed again, a new picture notification from the museum's security camera. It showed his workshop. The painting was glowing faintly in the dark, and now 4 figures stood in it: the father, the mother, the boy, and the little girl. Henry's hands shook. "Finish the family," he whispered. He turned off the phone and tried to sleep, but his dreams were full of whispers and cold hands touching his shoulders. When he returned to the museum the next morning, the painting was gone. The wall where it had hung was empty. The security guards said they didn't see anyone take it. The footage from the night before showed only static, white noise filling the screen. The museum searched for weeks but never found the painting. Henry left his job soon after. He couldn't stand being around art anymore. A few months later, while walking home, he passed by a small antique shop. Something in the window made him stop. There, behind the glass, was the same painting, the Caraway family portrait. Only now, there were 5 people in it. The new figure was sitting beside the boy, a man in modern clothes holding a paintbrush. Henry's breath caught in his throat. His own face stared back from the canvas, eyes empty and lifeless. The woman's hand rested gently on his shoulder. The shop lights flickered. The man behind the counter looked up and smiled. "Beautiful, isn't it? It just arrived last night. Nobody knows where it came from." Henry stumbled back, whispering, "No, that's impossible." He ran out into the street, his heart pounding. When he turned back for one last look through the shop window, the painting had changed again. The mother's eyes were looking directly at him, and her mouth had curved into a faint smile. The sign under the frame now read, "The Caraway Family, restored by Henry Walker." And as the lights flickered, once more,
Henry's reflection vanished from the glass, leaving only the painted version of himself staring out forever from the other side.